Hello, clever people, and welcome to my review for Alpha. So Alpha takes place in Europe about 20,000 years ago, and it follows the story of a 17 or 18-year-old boy. He's coming of age who is in a tribe, and he basically has to try to man up and try to kill. He has never really been a killer. He's more heartfelt, so when he goes on his first hunt, he's not able to kill an animal. And when he tries to kill an animal for the first time, it's a buffalo, he starts running away, and then his dad yells at him, and he falls off of a cliff, and then he wakes up with a broken foot, and he has to fight off these wolves. And one of them he hurts pretty badly, and he takes them back into his cave, and basically he starts to develop a friendship with the dog. And what it's trying to do is be a dog movie, but it takes place 20,000 years ago, and it's the first domestication of dogs. And this is, of course, a story that I'm surprised it doesn't really have a movie every 2 or 3 years, because this seems like something very profitable. Dog movies that take place with the first domestication of dog. I'm really surprised that this is the first movie that I know of that followed this plot. But that does not necessarily mean that Alpha was all that great. Even though it did have an interesting plot, it was not necessarily a great movie. This movie was moved around so many times. I'm fairly sure that the original release date was supposed to be in 2015, and then they kept on moving it around, and now it's coming out in August of 2018. Last I remembered, it was coming out in March of 2018. I saw the trailer in front of Star Wars, which seemed weird. And then it was planned for December, and then they moved it up to August, and it finally came out after all this moving around, and it was just mediocre. Exactly what I expected from the trailer. It's just a mediocre, okay, decent film that has not a whole lot going for it. Something I did find pretty ambitious with this movie is that it was not a movie in English. The characters in it did not speak English. They spoke the old version of language that they used back 20,000 years ago. Usually movies like this, especially movies that seem to be more appealing to kids, I'll talk about that in a second, they usually have it so that the characters speak English because kids don't want to read subtitles. And when I saw this movie, there were probably 10 or 20 kids in the theater. They were all bored out of their minds because they couldn't read the subtitles, but I thought that was kind of ambitious and kind of cool, honestly. The rest of the movie, though, has really nothing going for it. That's really just a novelty, and the rest of the movie just has nothing strong in it. The whole movie is just kind of lackluster and tiring, and by the end of it, you walk out of the theater completely unaffected. And this is because there was a lot of padding in this movie. It felt like every single scene was padding. You had 3 or 4 scenes that were integral to the plot and changed the outcome. But a lot of it just felt like scenes that were in there just to try to make a feature-length film, especially in the first act. The first act dragged very, very hard because it kept on going on and on. And when they finally got to the dog, it stepped up a bit in entertainment, but it didn't really become all that much better. Really, this movie just suffers from a lack of interest in the plot. The movie is not all that interesting. It's honestly kind of boring, and I hate to say that. I don't like to use the word boring when I'm reviewing film, but there's no other better word to use for this. It's just a boring movie. And I mean, I've seen a lot of critics that have come out and said that they really liked it, and that's cool if you did. It's just personally, I felt like it was stale and boring because there was no style to it. It just felt like a movie that should have been on the History Channel. Honestly, it had the same aesthetic as a movie on the History Channel. It had the same plot. If you just made it a bit more accurate to, back then, because I believe that the dog was believed to have originated, or the domestication of dogs was originally believed to have happened in China, but it happened in Europe in this one, which was weird, and I'm pretty sure that horses were tamed before dogs. I could have this all wrong, but I'm pretty sure that that's the way that it went. And also, the other big major issue with this movie is that it doesn't really have a demographic it's going for. The trailers made it look like a fun kids family movie, and it's not that at all. It's a lot more depressing, it's a lot more violent, and it's just, it has subtitles. It's a lot more slow moving than a kids movie. At the same time, it doesn't really feel like it's made for older people because it feels the need to explain everything. It's over-explaining so many details in the plot. So really, the movie serves no demographic, And honestly, it serves no purpose. This feels like a useless movie. And the budget, I believe, is like 40 million or something, or 50 million, and it's not doing good in its box office returns, so clearly this was just a waste of a movie. Alpha is not terrific, it's not fantastic or anything, it's just okay. And I walked out of the theater really not caring at all. There's not a whole lot bad about it, there's not a whole lot good about it. I would say as of right now that it's the most mediocre movie of the year. I will give Alpha a 5 out of 10. Alright, that concludes my review for Alpha. So, what are your thoughts on this film, or what's your favorite dog movie? Comment in the comment section below and let me know. I'm Robert Burke, and this has been The Clever Critics. Goodbye.